A jury is recommending the death penalty for the man convicted of killing San Diego police officer J.D. de Guzman. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. Jesse Gomez also shot and wounded de Guzman's partner, Wade Irwin. News 8's Jesse Began is live downtown with what he's just heard from San Diego's police chief. Jesse?
Yeah, Carlo, Marcella, just hours after the jury handed down that death penalty recommendation, San Diego's police chief, Dave Nislight, is now expressing his thoughts and really the department's thoughts on the case that really involved two of his own officers. In a statement, in part, quote, Chief Nislight says, in the years since his death, JD's loved ones, Detective Irwin, and the entire SGPD family have looked forward to the day where the defendant would be held accountable for his heinous crimes.
Verdict, count one. We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, fix the penalty for count one of the information as death.
Now, while we heard gasps from people in the courtroom when the jury found Gomez guilty of first-degree murder and attempted murder a few weeks ago, this time there was a lot more silence. Only one of Gomez's attorneys could be seen crying as the verdict came down. This decision has been 2 weeks in the making, with attorneys for both sides making their final arguments. Now, despite this death penalty recommendation coming down from the jury, there is that moratorium on executions in the state of California. That, coupled with the average years-long wait for executions for death row inmates in the state, could mean that Gomez could live for years in prison. That, of course, is to be determined to come. Now, this all goes into a verdict motion phase of the trial. Basically, essentially, the judge will either uphold that death penalty recommendation or strike it down. That hearing, for that to happen, is scheduled for early October. Carlo, Marcella?
May Lori's memory forever be a blessing. And Mr. Ernst, may your life be pure hell on earth.
Convicted Poway synagogue shooter, 22-year-old John Ernest, has been sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 137 years to life. The shooting happened in April of 2019, leaving one woman dead and 3 others hurt.
Ernest also pled guilty to an arson charge for setting fire to a mosque in Escondido a month before the shooting. News 8's Kirsten Holmes was at the courthouse for the sentencing and joins us live with details. Kirsten?
You know, emotions ran high as the family, friends, and others of Lori Gilbert Kay and others shared their victim impact statement. This all just moments before the shooter heard that he was going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Heartbreaking testimony from those left behind after the Poway synagogue shooting.
Whenever I'm in the synagogue, even though they filled the bullet holes, I can still see them. And I can still smell the gunpowder. And I hate you for that.
The sentencing today doesn't take away my pain or ease my grief. Know this, hatred will not win.
As loved ones pay tribute to the life lost.
Witnessing my father try to revive my mother and fail, not only as her husband, but as a doctor of 40+ years, was a colossal tragedy in itself, for she died instantly.
Lori K. Gilbert died while trying to protect her friend, Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein. Her daughter, Hannah Kay, shares the last picture she took with her mom that very day.
Unaware that this photo would be the last relic of my mother and I, together in the physical, embracing each other's arms, loving one another whole and home. Yikdal.
And then offers a prayer in Hebrew that she says her mother was unable to recite the day she was killed.
I will not walk away today feeling a sense of happiness, of relief or ease. I refuse to dehumanize you. I will not hate you just the same.
I will not be.
San Diego District Attorney Summer Steffen says they weren't speaking the shooter's name aloud.
We will not glorify this act of complete cowardice.
Because he pled guilty to life without parole.
He will be erased from history. What will remain is the name of Lori Gilbert Kay.
Prosecutors say 54 people were inside of that synagogue when the shooter opened fire. And state prosecutors said last year that they would seek the death penalty in this case, but that effort was dropped in light of the plea deal in which the shooter admitted to carrying out the crime because of the victim's race.
Kirsten, as you mentioned earlier, Ernest was also convicted in a mosque arson. Did we hear from any victims connected to that crime in court today?
Yeah, victims of the mosque fire, the defendant said about a month before the shooting, were invited to today's sentencing, but they declined that invitation.
Kirsten Holmes reporting live. Thanks, Kirsten.
Today is the deadline for healthcare workers across the state to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 or risk getting fired. Those who are not vaccinated must have a medical or religious exemption.
We reached out to a number of area healthcare groups about where their numbers stand at the moment. News 8's Heather Hope has that breakdown and a response from the nurses union.
For the hospitals that have provided us their vaccinated employee numbers, overwhelmingly they show that the majority of healthcare workers have been vaccinated. But as for that small group who has not, they risk being terminated by the end of today. And there will be a group of healthcare workers who plan to rally right outside Brady Children's Hospital tomorrow in order to protest the vaccine mandate.
We're kind of running down the last final numbers to decide, how many employees unfortunately have to be terminated because they chose not to get vaccinated.
As California's vaccination mandate deadline for healthcare workers arrives, gathering the healthcare headcount of vaccinated employees wasn't a steep challenge for Scripps Health CEO Chris Van Gorder, as 98% of its doctors are vaccinated.
If this were an election, it would be a landslide in terms of who won. Vaccinations win.
Scripps Health says only 0.5% of all its 16,500 employees are unvaccinated. 541 received exemptions for medical, pregnancy, and religious reasons.
All of these exemptions we've given are temporary, and the employees know that. So, for example, pregnancy doesn't last forever. When those moms have their babies and come back to work, they have to be vaccinated.
For Sharp Healthcare, 92% of its 18,246 employees are vaccinated. 691 are exempt, 292 are partially vaccinated, and 539 employees remain unvaccinated. For Kaiser Permanente, it says about 97% of employees have responded with either vaccination verification or request for exemption, and the number continues to grow. The California Nurses Association statement says, "We strongly believe all eligible people should be vaccinated. While respecting the need for medical and religious accommodations, we know employers can encourage vaccination by offering easily accessible on-site shots and paid time off to get vaccinated and to help employees deal with potential side effects." Some healthcare workers plan to rally Friday supporting vaccine choice and not a mandate.
It's a statewide mandate, and come November, there'll be a federal mandate.
So tomorrow, right outside Brady Children's Hospital from 2 to 4 p.m., the America's Healthcare Workers for Medical Freedom will hold their rally in support of vaccine choice. Heather Hope, News 8.
Heather, the state's ban on evictions expires tonight, but there are still some protections for renters. Starting tomorrow, landlords who want to evict a tenant must show they already applied for rental assistance. There are also several local programs to help tenants with rent or if they've been served an eviction notice. We have several links to resources on our website. Just visit cbs8.com and click on the Help button.
President Biden has signed a temporary spending measure that avoids a government shutdown. Both the House and Senate passed the bill earlier today, which funds the federal government through early December. Congress is also less than 3 weeks away from another looming crisis over the debt ceiling. That's when the U.S. is at risk of defaulting on its debt. The Treasury Secretary sounded the alarm on Capitol Hill today.
The full faith and credit of the United States would be impaired, and our country would likely face a financial crisis.
The House has approved a clean debt limit suspension through the end of 2022. Senate Democrats say they may try to bring that measure up for consideration next week. In an emotional ceremony today, Governor Gavin Newsom signed 4 police reform bills.
He was joined by 2 families who lost loved ones at the hands of police officers. Political reporter Morgan Reiner has more on what changes are ahead.
One of the bills, referred to as the George Floyd bill, seeks to punish and hold those officers accountable that stand by and do nothing when they watch other officers using excessive force.
Consoling.
I know how hard this is.
And chanting names.
Kenneth Ross Jr., say his name.
Thursday's bill signing ceremony is located in the same complex after Kenneth Ross Jr. was shot twice in the back in 2018. The district attorney's office cleared that officer and deemed it self-defense.
I'm honored to author SB 2, Police Decertification, better known as the Kenneth Ross Jr. Initiative.
SB 2 creates a process to strip cops of their badges so they can't switch to another department anywhere in the state if found of wrongdoing.
More mature and better educated officers are less reliant on excessive force.
AB 89 raises the minimum age for an officer from 18 to 21 years old.
As most women will tell you, most men don't mature until they're 30.
AB 26 requires officers to report when excessive force is used and prohibits that officer from any retaliation for doing so. It also defines what an officer should do to intervene, including de-escalation techniques.
Finally, AB 26 requires that an officer who fails to intervene be disciplined up and including in the same manner as an officer who used excessive force.
Attorney General Rob Bonta said California is now leading in criminal justice reform.
We are in a crisis of trust when it comes to law enforcement.
8 total bills were signed on this topic today. One of them bans any sort of position that could cause asphyxia or choking. Another one requires law enforcement agencies to get permission before receiving any sort of surplus equipment from the military.
Thank you, Morgan. In Carson tonight, a massive pallet fire has spread to nearby buildings.
This right here is a live look. This is an aerial view. You can see it's mostly smoke now, so that is better news than the flames that we saw. At least 75 firefighters have been battling this fire, which broke out in an industrial area this afternoon. Firefighters say the pallets are packed with a variety of items, including products made with rubbing alcohol. It's not clear yet what started this fire. We don't know the widespread impact of the damage just yet. We'll be following that pallet fire over the next hour.